March Madness is finally here. The 2025 NCAA Tournament kicks off with some of the first 4 games on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the first round gets underway this Thursday. So on today's show for the Sixers, we're going to look at 10 players that will be playing in this year's March Madness Tournament to see what guys they could potentially be taking a look at in the 2025 NBA Draft. Now, before we get into those names, it's that time of the year. Predictions are going wild. Everybody thinks they're going to have their first perfect bracket, and I want to know, who do you think is going to win the 2025 NCAA Tournament? For me, I'm going with my Clemson Tigers, baby. It's their year. It's their year. Elite Eight run last year. It's happening this season. All right, let's get into the players to watch during March Madness, and we're going to start off with an electric athlete out of Baylor in VJ Edgecombe. And look, obviously Cooper Flagg is the top guy, and if the Sixers have the number 1 overall pick, they will take Cooper Flagg. He will be the number 1 overall pick. But look, if the Sixers end up at 4 or 5, I think VJ Edgecombe is my number 1 prospect for Philadelphia in that range. An explosive athlete. When he comes into the NBA, he's immediately going to be one of the best athletes in the entire league. And in his upcoming potential March Madness run with Baylor, I would like to see a little bit more shot creation, refinement on his jump shot, but he really has all the tools to immediately be a dangerous weapon in transition, and he's a very good defender as well, projects to be an Andrew Wiggins type. So if he can get that offensive game a little more polished and make a deep run leading this Baylor squad to maybe a Sweet 16, he could be a name that might end up going 2 or 3 overall. So watch out for VJ Edgecombe as Baylor gets underway this week. Next, from Duke, Kon Knueppel. And when Cooper Flagg went down against Georgia Tech about a week or so ago when they were playing that game, they were down pretty big in that game. And Kon Knueppel made sure that Duke did not lose that game. When you're talking about what the Sixers' biggest needs are, 3-point shooting, man. That is what they need, and Kon does that for you. Almost 40% from 3 on the season, but he's even flashed some other skills as Duke has allowed him to do a little bit more with the ball in his hands. As I mentioned in that game against Georgia Tech, when Cooper Flagg went out, look at how he stepped up. 28 points, 8 assists as well, and what I love is that the 3-point shot, 2 of 6, not bad, not great either, right? But 12 of 13 from the line. He was attacking. He was aggressive, so it's not just a guy that will stand there and spot up from the 3-point line. He's a guy as well that can do a little bit more with the ball in his hands. Not quite, a star upside like someone like VJ might have, but somebody who, for a team like the Sixers, who are a little bit more win now than other teams in the lottery, if they end up being right at 6, could be an option here to fill a big-time need. Next up, Tre Johnson out of Texas. Now, Texas does have to win a play-in game to officially get into the tournament, but I'm going to count it anyways for Tre Johnson and Texas. The very, very talented freshman hooping over there led the SEC in scoring nearly 20 points a game, shooting almost 40% from 3. If there's one thing Tre Johnson can do, it is get a bucket. And watching some Texas during the SEC tournament, one thing I heard a lot when scouting Tre Johnson was that he doesn't pass the ball. He doesn't do all the other things. He could be a little selfish, take his own shots. Man, I saw him moving the ball a little bit more and not being just a give me the ball and go get what I have to. So I like that sort of progression in his game. But I also saw a little bit of, him specifically in the game against Tennessee. They put their best defender on Tre Johnson, and he kind of disappeared a little bit. Wasn't as aggressive, clearly bothered by that physical defense. Still a very young player, as I mentioned, to play on that guard/wing spot at 6'7". Projects to be more of a 2-guard than a true 3. But if this freshman can come out and show a little maturity in some of these big moments and lead Texas again to a few wins in March, he's maybe the second best true scorer in this class, and somebody that I think would be able to fit alongside Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. The Sixers do end up keeping that pick. So we'll see what he can show off in March Madness. Coming up, number 4, first big man we're getting on this list, and that is Derik Queen, a fast riser over this past month or so with Maryland. Derik Queen has been dominating for Maryland. And he's a very interesting big because, take a look at his numbers, 16-9, just over a block a game. But he can really do more than, your typical center would be able to. He has skills with the ball in his hands. He can face you up. He can attack you. He can go get his own, driving dunk off the break. And it's, he still needs a three-point shot to kind of come together a little bit to be this, like, truly high level prospect. But, man, Derik Queen, especially against Michigan in the Big Ten tourney. Now, Maryland ended up losing, but he had a 31-point game against Michigan, who's a very, very good team, a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. And Maryland also as well looking to make a deep run. And Derik Queen, if you're looking for somebody, I think he could play next to Joel Embiid, honestly, if he can get that three-point shot to be a little more consistent. But even if you're looking for a long-term replacement, Derik Queen has skills to be more than just, a rim runner or a back-to-the-basket center. He can handle the ball a little bit. Definitely an interesting talent. And then a name you might recognize here off the last name alone, Jace Richardson, the son of former Sixers legend Jason Richardson. Jace Richardson, not quite the athlete that Jason was, but a really, really fast riser as well here late in the process. Now, Jace, a good offensive player, no doubt about it. You can look at his efficiency, 51% from the field and 41% from three. He's really been able to show more as the season's gone on, as Michigan State has allowed him to play a bigger role on the offensive side of the ball. You can see he's only started 11 games this year, right, out of the 30 or so games they've played. But in those 11 starts, 9 of which have come in the last 9 games, over 17 points, 5 rebounds, still shooting 50% from the field and 42% from three. He has that handle. He's able to use his athletic feel, although he's not dunking on guys like Jason was, to get to the basket. He's a good passer. And he's, again, very young, just a freshman. Could be a one and done. And somebody that is sneaking up into the top 10, a guy that I would like for the Sixers potentially at that 6th spot if some of the other top prospects do go off the board. Got 5 more names to get to, but first, I've been telling you guys for a little bit about this 76ers polo. It was 85, and up until this week, it was discounted down to about 63, but now it's discounted even further, down to just $57. So if you did not take advantage of that deal just yet, got to do it now while it's the lowest price it might ever be. Chatsports.com/76polo is where you can find that great deal. So be sure to take advantage, look good, feel good, save some money while you're at it. Again, that's chatsports.com/76polo. That'll be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Going back to the big men here, Kon Kneuppel out of Duke. Have talked about him on the show before. Very different from a player like Derik Queen. Kon Kneuppel is much more your up and down, rim running, set a screen, roll hard to the basket type of center. Similar to Joel Embiid in the fact that he hasn't played a whole lot of basketball in his career. But look at his 1 year at Duke, not quite, I think, what some people thought the potential might have been, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where he hasn't been able to show as much touch or as much just offensive ability in general around the rim. And defensively, he's been very good defensively, but also just not quite that elite level defender that some people thought he might be. But look, this Duke team, a 1 seed in the tournament, if they're going to make a deep run, they're going to need Kneuppel to be that anchor down in the middle. And if he can show a little bit more on both sides of the ball than he did throughout the regular season and the ACC tournament, I think Kneuppel at one point was sort of a top 5 guy, fell off a little bit to top 10, top 12. He could sneak back up into that top 5 range and, again, potentially be a long-term backup center for the Sixers to eventually take over for Joel Embiid, because I don't think Adem Bona is a guy that's going to be a starter one day. So that's already 2 guys out of Duke now, with Kneuppel and with Kon Knueppel. Next up, we got Kasparas Jakusionis. That was not right, I don't think. I was close. I'm going to get it right one of these times. Second time we're talking about Kasparas here on the show over there with Illinois. And he's got real good size for a guard, man, at 6'6", 200 pounds. Not a great athlete, not going to have great explosiveness or quickness, but that's not how he wins. That's not how he has to beat you. He's got great size for the position, 6'6", 6'7", 245. He's really able to use that size. I don't think he's 245. That's actually my mistake. He's 200. So ignore that. Not 6'6", 245 with him. That'd be crazy. But very skilled. And that's how he's able to outsmart defenders at that combo guard spot. He can score. There we go. Look at my man Reed, changing it on the fly. I think I messed up all the heights and weights on these guys, but regardless, Kasparis able to create looks for himself, and other Sixers have not had enough shot creators and self-creators creating easy shots for others on the floor, especially. It's been like all Tyrese Maxey pretty much. So they could use another guy out there at the end of games, just get somebody an easy look, whether it's him, whether it's someone else. And if he can get that three-point shot down and really get that maybe up towards 34, 35%, dangerous player, triple-double threat, there's everything out there on the floor. Could be a good pick there at number 6, or maybe even higher. The Sixers can move up in the draft lottery. Another name that I like that unfortunately has fallen off a bit as of late is Liam McNeely out of UConn. Another one of these, sort of 3-and-D type of players, but unfortunately the three-point shot really has not been there as much as you would like to see, shooting just 33% from 3 on the year. Now, still, I think he's a better three-point shooter than that, and I think maybe he'll be able to show that with UConn here in the tournament, but he's 6'7", 210 there for Liam McNeely, just 19 years old, and he can do it in all types of ways, spot-up shooting, off a screen. He can do a little bit with the ball in his hands as well. He's not going to have, star caliber upside or anything like that because he's not a great athlete, and he does have some defensive limitations, but similar to what I talked about with Kon Knueppel, I think Kon is a little bit of a higher upside prospect and probably a better shooter at this point in their respective careers as well. But if he's gone, or if you're looking for a little bit of a different body type with someone like a Liam McNeely, he can certainly fill that role of a 3-and-D player, more so on that three-point shot, but again, has been a little inconsistent this year. He'll have games where he's hitting down multiple shots, but, then he'll have games where 1 of 5, 1 of 6 from 3. So you'd like to see a little more consistency out of him there to be able to rise a little bit in these draft rankings, but still a player I would be looking out for, as well as Asa Newell. This is another name out of Georgia here who didn't have a ton of buzz at the beginning of the year, but at 6'11", 220, 19 years old, has been gaining a little bit more interest, especially because he does have some shooting potential, unlike some of these other bigs that we have been talking about here so far. And again, with that shooting potential, he's got some defensive switchability as well. He's able to, really work all areas of the floor while still being a solid defender. Now, you can see 30% from 3 is not great, but the form is there, and it looks good enough where you can project moving forward that he'll be able to carve out a role for himself there. Because I don't think he's a true center, a true big. At 6'11", 220, he'd really have to put on some weight to be able to hang down there with the big men in the NBA. You imagine him going up against someone like Joel Embiid, who's 280-plus pounds. It's not going to work out too well for him, but did make 23 threes this year. It showed in high school as well. And so this is more of a versatile big, not quite the ball handling ability of something like a Derik Queen we talked about, not quite, the rim running, rim protection of a Kaman Maluach, but someone in the middle, more of a stretch potential a little bit that should be able to be there at that number 6 pick. And finally, we're going to end off with Yegor Demin. Absolutely nailed that one. This is another player who had way more buzz coming into the year as a potential top 5, top 10 pick. And now you'll find Yegor more in the 20s-ish range of potential NBA draft videos because the offensive game, particularly the three-point shot, has been very, very disappointing. You can see just 27% from 3. But similar to Kasparis, 6'9", 190, he, at that guard spot, sort of that bigger playmaker that you could rely on to set up other people for open looks in transitions, off of ball screens. Tough time creating separation for himself, and again, has really struggled to make outside shots. But if he does start to develop a little bit of that outside shot with his playmaking ability and his vision, another guy that could really help the Sixers by just creating better looks for this offense, because even when this team was fully healthy for the Sixers, they really, really struggled at knocking down open threes, at generating open threes, and as a whole, just getting good looks was a struggle all year long. So Yegor Demin, another name to watch out for as we head into March Madness again. The first round games officially starting on Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, first 4. Thursday, Friday is when we get into the first round, and we'll see some of these guys play. VJ Edgecombe, Kon Knueppel, probably like my top two. Maybe I'd throw Tre Johnson in there as well as like a clear top three. I think VJ is definitely number one because of his athletic ability, what he can bring on the wing for this team, where the Sixers definitely have their biggest of needs. I like Kon Knueppel as well. Doesn't have the star upside of a VJ Edgecombe. Tre Johnson, as good of a player I think he can be, he is just very young and just needs, I think, to mature a little bit in his game. Not necessarily the emotion side of things. I think he's fine with that, but just knowing when to pick and choose his spots and develop other aspects of his game. Derik Queen, very intriguing player as well. We'll see how high he continues to rise if Maryland makes a deep run. Jace Richardson, though, is another name between him and VJ. Two guys that I think the Sixers should be taking a good, hard look at. Guys that, particularly, in Jace's case, can do more things off the dribble with the ball in his hands, and then VJ has that potential star upside with his athleticism. So you heard from me, 10 guys that will be playing in March Madness. That's why you don't see guys like Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper for Rutgers, because Rutgers unable to make the March Madness tournament despite having two of arguably the top 3 prospects in this year's draft. So 10 guys that will be playing that you can watch. So I encourage you, all those 10 guys that I mentioned, take an extra look at those games when they play and see if you think they'd be good fits for the Sixers. But let me know, who is your favorite prospect in this year's draft? Doesn't just have to be a guy that's playing during the March Madness run. It can be absolutely anybody. Just don't say Cooper Flagg because it's a little too obvious. Let's go outside the box a little bit more here and let me know. Be sure to hit that sub button here on the channel if you enjoyed today's show. If you enjoy some of the draft coverage that we're starting to pick up with here on 76ers Now, hit that sub button. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video as well. It lets me know that you want more draft coverage. And again, if you want more, be sure to subscribe. Trying to hit 21.1 thousand subscribers here on the channel.